Now, when we talk about struggling inflation and struggling to bring that down in Australia compared to other countries, you mentioned there that we started, inflation started earlier and that kind of thing. But when will Australia likely declare victory on inflation? Are there other factors that are contributing to this as to why we're struggling to bring it down?
And we are doing very well. Worth a reminder that inflation in prices in general for consumers is just under 3.5%. That's less than half the peak we saw at the end of 2022. And you would expect that it will continue to improve from here, and indeed probably at a rate faster than the Reserve Bank is imagining. But it's always been that last mile. It's the tricky stuff that inflation is left in now. It's things like rents, it's things like insurance, it's things like education costs. That combination of things, broadly services, that's going to be harder to defeat inflation on that front. We're not the only ones. All around the world, you're seeing a similar story. And because they started their inflation earlier, they're seeing that story play out earlier. But the US is a great example. Inflation has struggled to go down in the last couple of months in the US. That means their rate cuts, yes, they'll get them comfortably before ours, but not that soon.
I mean, home values in Australia have risen for the 14th straight month. How is this impacting the cash rate, Chris?
So it is a very indirect connection. When Australians feel wealthier, they are more likely to spend. And although it's terrible for many Australians, on average, that increase in wealth is going to see increased spending in Australia. And it is going to be one of the factors that the Reserve Bank will keep in mind. But it's probably not make or break. The Reserve Bank shouldn't be setting interest rates with house prices as an absolutely central determinant of what they do. But yes, part of that broader backdrop.
And what about the unemployment rate?
So the last bit of news we got was good. It was even spectacularly good at 3.7%. Remember, when unemployment was at its low, that was 3.4% a while back. That was the lowest in more than half a century. So at 3.7%, the good news is that the slowdown in the Australian economy hasn't cost a lot of jobs. Bad news is that that last reading was probably artificially good, and unemployment will get a bit worse before we're through this.
Okay, so interest rate relief still a while away, but it will come in the form of tax cuts as some relief for many Australians. Chris Richardson, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Holly.